EA, welcome to Work Life. I'm really glad that you could join us here today.
Eric, thank you so much for having me on the show, and I look forward to being able to share some new, different, interesting nuggets with all of your listeners.
Hey, that's great. You know, one of the reasons that I started this show is so many people have interesting stories, and my regular podcast that I do, the Virtual CMO, is really focused on marketing activities. But there are so many interesting stories out there that I thought I'd start a show that really focused on people's progression, throughout their life, their career moments, and really what they're doing to find passion and fulfillment. And when I saw your story, I said, here's a guy that we should have on this show because it sounds like he's really got an interesting journey and some fun things to share. So we always start out talking a little bit about, your career journey, where you started, where you ended up, and how you got there. So if you could just share with the audience a little bit of your background.
Be happy to. Thank you again. Well, Eric, my background was part of the challenge. I was born as the son of a milkman, and back in those days, milk was in glass containers, and there was a box outside the house, and the homeowner left money in the box, and everyone knew it, and no one ever took the money. It was in the box, and we brought the milk, and my father had a distributorship for a company called Twin Oaks out of Chicago, Illinois, and that was my background as a child. And then from there, I advanced all the way up into the world of being a janitor.
Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it's a baby step, right?
For sure. And that's what really, and it shows you how sometimes the most interesting things that happen in our life are based on an unexpected moment. And while being a janitor at the ripe old age of 16 years old, I was able to be insured. And one of the houses that we cleaned was that of June Martino, who had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's.
Oh, interesting.
And so I was in there every week, and June would say hi to me, and we knew each other just from hello, and that was it. She recognized me because I was there every week, and she just seemed like a really nice lady. And so I was always fascinated by this whole McDonald's thing, being from Chicago. It's where the world headquarters is, and I thought, man. So when the time was right and I saw she was in a really good mood, I went to her, I said, June, could you tell me about it? And she looked at me and said, well, what do you mean? I said, the whole McDonald's thing. Eric, I'm not kidding. She put her arm around me, brought me in the kitchen, and the whole entire day told me an entire story from beginning to where it was minute. Like no one had ever asked her that question before. And I have to say, it was a good thing there was no flies in the room because I just sat there, with my mouth open the whole time. I thought, man, this is June Martino. She's worth so many zeros. I can't even count how many zeros she's worth, and she's telling me it all. And, and so I asked her one question that was the profound question that I could tell she had never been asked before. So here's this little 16-year-old, snot-nosed 16-year-old kid asking her this question. I said, June, you told me that Ray couldn't afford to pay you. And in the movie, by the way, Michael Keaton, there's a reference there where, in fact, the lady he's talking to, he always says, June, that's her. It's not,
really?
I mean, that's an actress, but that was June Martino, his personal secretary. And there was a time where McDonald's wasn't making money and couldn't afford to pay her. So she told me that, and that part of the movie was true. A lot of it was Hollywoodized, but that part was true. And I said, June, man, he was paying you this company, paying you stock instead of money in a worthless company. It was worth nothing at that point. It was literally underwater. Why'd you do it? I said, I get paid on Friday. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. I said, I need that paycheck. Why'd you do it? And Eric, she sat back and stared at me with this vacant, far off look. I could tell no one had ever asked her that. And the answer made the hair stand up on the back of my neck because it wasn't what she said, but it was the way she said it that gave me pause that I never forgot. And when I asked her, why'd you do it? After that pause, which seemed like a year, it was only a few seconds, she said, because I believed in Ray.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, man, I got to find me a Ray Kroc. I've got to find someone that I can believe in that much. I could take me under their wing and teach me all about business because I want to be rich and happy, not knowing I had it backwards. First, I really should have been happy and then rich, right?
Right.
I had it reversed. So that was, and I used to pull, Eric, I pulled a Rolls Royce out of the garage. And that was, people really live like this, man. She's got a Rolls Royce that's worth more than I'll ever earn in my life, and I'm driving this car. And it was my first real dabble with, these are regular people. There's nothing, there's nothing really spectacular about them. They're not like some alien or superhero she was very regular and approachable and very easy to talk to. And I thought, man, this is really something. It wasn't a few months later, and I genuinely met my mentor. And I share with your listeners, be careful of who you have as a mentor, but then once you have them, once you've really discerned, make sure you listen to them and have someone you can learn from who's done it so that you can benefit by their mistakes. And I got my Ray Kroc. It was a gentleman by the name of Sam Robbins.
Okay.
He was from Detroit, opening a jewelry store and in Chicago. And we went to give him an estimate on some carpeting. He didn't buy the carpeting, and he offered me a job. And I left. I said, no, I'm all set. My future's all set up. I'm a janitor. People, I've got a future ahead of me. People will always make a mess, and I'll always be able to clean it up. So I'm all set.
Security, right?
Yeah. And he says, and I said, I don't know anything about diamonds. All I know is someday a woman's going to ask me for one, and they cost a lot. That's all I know. He said, well, I'll teach you. And I said, I don't know. And as I was walking out the door, Eric, he hooked me, and I didn't realize till later he really was that good. He was quite the wordsmith. And he said, well, what do you have to lose? You can always go back being a janitor. And I said, oh, no, I'm all set. And I left. And all the way home was bugging me what he said. He's right. I could always go back being a janitor. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I end up right where I'm at right now. And so I thought, what does he have in mind? So I drove back, and it was about midnight at this point. He was leaving the next morning. And I thought he'd be gone already. And he wasn't. He was still there. And I said, well, what do you have in mind? And so he offered me the job, and we came to terms. And for the next 4 months, I got in the car at 4 a.m. in Chicago on Saturday morning, drove all the way to Detroit, had a 6-hour conversation with him, got back in the car the same day and drove back to Chicago. And I did that for 4 months in a row and never missed a weekend.
Oh, wow.
So, for your listeners, be willing to go the extra mile, because it will pay off. And I didn't realize at the point he was really testing me to see, did I really have the desire that I wanted to make it? Or was I one of the myriads that just said, it'd be really nice to be rich someday, and all those people are lucky? What
do you think he saw in you? I mean, to give you that opportunity, what did he see in you?
It's a great question. My desire. There was a burning desire, yet I still needed to prove it to him. Was it just a hope kind of desire that maybe I hope someday, even if I trip across success, or am I really willing to do what it is going to take and require and enjoy the price of success in that journey? So it was that burning desire, and I guarantee you I had it. I mean, it was like engulfed inside of me,
And that came across during your carpet measuring with him?
It was
just
weird.
A conversation? Yeah.
It was weird, Eric, because we met, and I don't know if you've ever had the instance where when you've met someone, you felt like you've known them before.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of thing. When I met with him, I mean, side note, I went begrudgingly. He called the office at 6 p.m. Everyone was gone but me and the boss. And the boss says, go measure some carpeting. I said, I don't know how to measure carpeting. He said, I'll give you this walking wheel and show him the samples. I said, okay. I said, I already punched out. I don't want to do it. So I'm going to meet my mentor, and I don't know it. And I'm begrudgingly. and Jerry, my boss, says, I'll tell you what, I'll give you any Saturday off you want in the future. I said, any Saturday? Because that was a big janitorial day, right? All the businesses are closed. We got to clean. So he said, yep. And I said, okay. So here I am going to meet my mentor. And it shows you the most insignificant moments where we meet and have the most significant events. Here I am going to meet this man who's going to change my life. And I'm doing it begrudgingly based on a deal on what Saturday I'm going to get off. Extraordinary.
No, I love that, because I have other friends who are really true believers in this as well. It's like, even if you're going to the grocery store, put on a nice shirt, do your hair, be prepared. You never know who you're going to meet. Sometimes it's these random little encounters with people that end up being truly life-changing. And that sounds like exactly what's happened with you.
And that is exactly what happened. And under his tutelage, I began to learn. He began to put together those burnt out wires. And that's really what sort of led to Givers University, because we teach something that I learned isn't being taught. It's not being taught anyway. I mean, I don't see it anywhere. I'm a self-improvement guy. I'm sure most of your listeners are, hour a day, I invest in me. And that certainly is touted a lot today. But no one is teaching us about the other guy. What if he's doing it wrong? And they're in our life. What do we do? And I can bet dollars of donuts that with your listeners, Eric, every one of the fires, if they think right now of the fires they have in their life that they're stomping out, or they think of the challenges they have in their life, I'll bet you there's a name attached to it. And no one's teaching us how to manage those. And so what we do is we teach people how to discern. First of all, Eric, we love everybody. I say that emphatically. We love everybody, but we teach people how to discern and separate the person who we love from the deeds that we don't love. And then we begin to teach people, this is what you look for. These are the 25 things that takers do that they shouldn't be doing. And when you see these things, you may want to consider not the person, but the deeds, respectfully distancing yourself, because you're going to be stomping out fires when they come closer. But conversely, these are the things you look for that givers do. And when you see this, pull these people in closer when you see these things, because these are the people that are going to bring wisdom, wealth, and wellness to your life. And today, Eric, as you know, businesses are coming and going faster than ever before.
Oh, for sure.
Products coming and going faster than ever before. And from a marketing perspective for your listeners, the only value today is the value we've created with great relationships.
It's true.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It's not the product. The product will be antiquated. The company will be gone. There'll be a new company. So how do we develop, Eric? How do we discern those people we want to have close in our life, as we call it, building your own giver community around you? And how do we discern those people that we should look for certain things, and when we see these things, begin to respectfully, not nasty or anything else, we still love them, but respectfully distance ourselves from them so that our productivity goes up, our happiness goes up, our stress level plummets, because we're not stomping out fires all day because of these people I have around us. And I learned this from my 3 major defeats in my life. These 3 defeats each caused me to write a book, each caused me to bring about this whole situation of teaching something that's not taught. The 2/3 that has to do with the relationships in our life that will impact our finances, impact our happiness, impact our family, our social life, the people we have around us. What about them? Where do we learn about that?
That's so interesting, because I know as human beings, we carry around a lot of emotional baggage. And when we interact with people, sometimes if you really are honest with yourself, you think back to why you like or dislike somebody. Oftentimes, a single incident could have affected your long-term view of somebody. Maybe you were slighted or treated unfairly in a specific circumstance, but the rest of the relationship was fine. But it's that one slight, it's that one thing that they did wrong that you carry around, and you formed a whole opinion about a person that you carry with you just from that one incident.
Oh, isn't that the truth? That is really the truth. And my first major defeat, if I could share it with you,
please do.
Is an uncanny, spectacular story of what happened years ago when they had a thing called a voice recorder. When you would leave a message for someone, it wasn't digital. I had this little machine on my desk, and I had a cassette tape. You remember, Eric? I had a cassette tape on one side for outgoing message, and on the other side was a cassette tape for all the incoming messages. And the tape was 60 minutes long. And I left home, and came back, and my 60-minute incoming messages thing was totally filled up. Oh. I thought, man, it's only gone an hour and a half. Some kids, it was voice actuated. So as long as someone talked, it would keep recording. And I thought, some kids are playing around with it. When I'm through with this quick little snippet, tell me what you think the odds are of this happening. So my business partner, we had a training company at that point, separately being trained from my business mentor. And we were doing very well in the Midwest, out of Chicago. Had a training company, training other companies on how to grow their businesses. And my business partner called me and left a message. And while he was leaving the message, I could hear that tone in the background. Back then, if you had call waiting or call conferencing, there was like a little beep.
The beep, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When someone was calling in while you were talking to someone, you could hear that beep, right?
Yep.
So I could hear that on the recording, that Jim was getting a recording or a message for someone, or someone was calling him. He hit the receiver so fast on the phone that it put my machine on call conferencing with him and someone else and recorded the whole conversation.
Oh my goodness.
And here's the other part. The conversation for 60 minutes was a detailed conversation on how they were going to take over the company and basically kick me out. And I was a 50% partner.
Oh my goodness. And you have it on tape, right?
Eric, when you hear it in their own words, it's a little bit different than third party.
Sure.
I'm hearing them say it.
Yeah.
The guy he's talking to. And I thought, man, what are the odds of this? First of all, what are the odds of him calling me right then when I was gone?
Yeah.
They could have called me when I was home. Then while he's leaving a message, what are the odds of that guy calling the guy he was going to do this with? And then what are the odds of them having that conversation? They could have talked about golf. They could have talked about anything. That whole conversation. That's why these and many other instances why I do not believe in chance or luck. I do not believe in them. And what are the odds of that happening, Eric?
Yeah. 1,000,000 to 1, right?
Yeah. So I thought, man, after going through all the emotional upheaval, because I'm hearing his own words and the emotional challenge, I thought, well, I've got to do what my business mentor taught me. And by the way, and since this partner has passed on, I never told him. He never knew the recording happened. I never, ever told him. Within a couple of days after I got my head straight, I said, Jim, I want you to buy me out. I'm going to do something with my business mentor, which was true. I said, we've got 7 days to do this. We've got to make a deal, cut it, and you're going to own the whole company, which put a big crimp in what he planned on doing to begin with, because I knew his whole plan. I had it on tape. And quite candidly, a couple of the payments I got on the business, they were actually gifts. I didn't even expect to get those once I realized what kind of person. And I thought, man, Eric, I've got to learn how not to be in this position again. What am I missing? There had to be some cues somewhere that I just wasn't observing, because I was sort of the benefit of the doubt kind of guy, just sort of, I'm getting a benefit of doubt. And so that led to me writing the first book called The Giver's Mindset. What are the 25 things that takers do that we should be watchful for, and just discern not the person, but the deeds. What are they doing? Yeah. And the 25 things that givers are doing to help discern this whole process, if you will. And that was the benefit that came out of this first major defeat leading up to the second major defeat. More learning.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I love that you took the lesson, put it into book format to be able to share some of those lessons learned with other people, because there are different personalities out there, right? Some people are more of a giving personality. Some people are definitely more takers, and you've got to be mindful of that.
Exactly right. And what we have found, and I've actually proved this statistically, that of 100 people, 20% are wired. Their mind is just wired as givers. In other words, you put them in any situation, doesn't matter what it is, and they will figure out how to start contributing to it, giving to it, helping it, and increasing it. By severe contrast, we have the other 20% at the other end of the spectrum, 20% again, who are wired as takers. You put them in any situation, and they will figure out how to take from it monetarily, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, doesn't matter. They're just wired that way. And the 60% in the middle, we call those, Eric, fencers. Those are the people that sit on the fence. They act like givers when they're with givers. They act like takers when they're with takers. They can be great relationships, but you've got to keep an eye on them, and you want to manage them and manage them closely. And so we learned this as we went through. And one of the things that comes up that people ask, and they say, well, why should I give to others if they're just going to take advantage of you? And I said, it's not exactly an accurate statement. When you're a giver, people may take advantage of you, but you are never diminished. That's an important distinction.
Yeah, I like that.
When we give to others, yes, they'll take advantage, but we're never diminished because we were giving. And what we gave out will come back from another person, from another source, from another event that will have nothing to do with it. And I learned this through my second defeat. Would you like me to touch on that?
Yeah. Go into that one.
Yeah, this was really something else. This goes back a little bit. At the ripe old, and what I'm about ready to say is to share with your listeners, not from the perspective of being braggadocious, because that's not my intention. My intention is to show them how fast things can come into your life and how fast they can leave when you have the wrong people around you. Right? Not what you're doing. You could be doing it right, but if you have the wrong people around you and you have a taker community around you and you don't realize it, watch what happens. Yeah. So here I am, 1989, ripe old age of 33 years old. This was the first year in my life that after paying all of my taxes that year, I had $1 million in cash in my pocket. It was the first year I netted $1 million after tax as personal income. And today, and that was 1989. So today it's well over 2 million. And here I am thinking he's King Midas. It's going to last forever. And I know your listeners, some of them are chuckling because they know what happens next. But here I am at 33 years old, 2 airplanes, owned 2 aircraft, became a commercial pilot. So I didn't have to, I learned how to fly myself as a commercial pilot, had a personal valet, a limo that was mine and was being driven full time at 33 years old, living like there's King Midas and Eric. It's going to last forever. It's just going to get better than this. Look at how lucky I am. But the president of that company, I was paying him $1 million a year as his income. Bought him as his company car. His company car was a Silver Spur Rolls Royce. And then I learned something. It's called greed. Ouch.
Yeah.
And that $1 million I was paying him wasn't enough. That car, he thought, I got a Silver Spur Rolls Royce and I'm doing all the work. Even though I founded the company and built it, from scratch along with my business mentor, all of a sudden, people, interestingly enough, will always justify and rationalize the crazy things that we all do. Otherwise, we'd all be nuts. We all rationalize the things we do, right? Absolutely. And so he was rationalizing his mind. Sure enough, boy, he did everything possible, very covertly because of the position he was in. He was able to keep it hidden and literally did a systemic takeover of the company and destroyed it. And all those things left just as fast as they came in. And that caused me to write the second book, The Giver's Lifestyle. Eric, what are the 30 habits that givers consistently display that lets us know that person, their deeds are a giver? Remember, we're not labeling the person as a giver, we're labeling their deeds. The taker, we're not labeling the person, we're labeling their deeds. So what are the 30 habits of a taker that we should be watching for? And when we see these, maybe we want to think about respectfully distancing ourselves, because they're going to bring with them what we call the 3 Ds of takers. And that is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. Takers always bring with them 100% of the time the seeds of their own destruction. And that usually includes the collateral damage, which may be one of us.
How often do you sort of characterize givers as falling into codependent kind of relationships with takers?
Oh, it can happen all the time and easy. And we call that temporary taker mode or temporary giver mode. And we teach in actually the 3rd book, Giver's Lifelong Learning, how to do what's called a reset, how to do a data reset, declare and turn around. What do you do when that happens, where all of a sudden we find ourselves with someone who's a taker? Could be a family member, who's every time they call, you can tell they just drain you. I mean, you feel like they just drained everything out of you emotionally, mentally. You think, man, what did we just talk about other than the fact that I can feel like I need to take a nap. I just took all my energy.
Emotional vampires, right?
Exactly. And that vampirism also is financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, across the board. That's why it's better to respectfully distance. So we actually teach the circumstance you just mentioned. What do you do when you love someone? You really love them, but you need to respectfully distance yourself because they're going to do what you're already experiencing. How do you do that in such a way so you can still be demonstrable in your love? Still let them know that you're there, but at the same time, be respectfully distanced and just not quite always available as you will before, so that they can learn. And then what we do also is we teach people, you know what? Sometimes they won't listen to us. They won't listen to you, Eric. They won't listen to me, especially if they're really close. And so how can we give them guidance and take them in another direction, which is really what brought about Givers University, because we have online courses, et cetera, et cetera. We have a 7-question quiz that everyone just loves. And it's called, what is your Givers Taker Awareness IQ?
I like that.
And they just go to a URL, take 7 questions, and it gives them an assessment. How are you what's your awareness level of these things? And then from that, we begin to let them know there's things you can do. There's things you can take. There's courses you can take. There's, learn about these things and learn how to discern, because givers earn more because they discern more. It's just that simple.
That's well, and just to sort of keep with the format of the show, because what you've explained is you've taken a lot of these life lessons and you've incorporated them not only into your career trajectory, but I'm sure this has made a huge impact in your personal life as well. So just kind of share how putting these things into practice has really changed you as a person and how you sort of interact with the world around you.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, Eric. And I hope that we've been sharing some really good things with your listeners to cause and provoke some thought and say, you know what, I really never thought about that before. I'm so focused on me and looking in the mirror and making myself better. What am I doing that can make my life better by having that giver community around me that I've built? And personally, I adopted the 3 I wills, which I will share with your listeners, that they should begin saying to themselves every day. And these 3 I wills are, I will never give up, I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
I like that.
And with those 3 wills, they can continue to go forward, and all the obstacles, build on those defeats, every adversity, not some, every adversity that your listeners have carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit when we look for it and we find it and we grow.
One of the things that struck me as we've been talking here today is your use of the word sort of I and what you need to do. In other words, personal responsibility. You haven't talked about how you need to help your mother stop complaining about money, or your friend to stop, being an emotional vampire. You're not talking about what you can do to fix other people. You're talking about how you respond to the people in your life.
And that's so important, because the difference between, and you nailed the word, Eric, you nailed it. Responding versus reacting. In the medical community, if you're having a reaction to medication, that's not good. You're reacting. If you're responding to the medication, that's good. You're doing better. And what we want to do with our relationships is learn to respond and not react. You nailed the word when you said responding, Eric.
One of the presentations that I give to groups is all around expectations. And expectations they're problematic. Because so many things can become disappointments when you set expectations instead of just letting things unfold the way they are. And as much as I talk about them and hear what you're saying, these are things that we all still struggle with every day, right? It's very hard to eliminate those from your life. But I love what you're talking about here and your approach and just the awareness that you can build in your own psyche about the people around you, and are they givers, are they takers, and how do you respond to that, and understanding that those are actions, those aren't necessarily who they are at their core, right? They're still can be valuable people in your life if you understand their behaviors.
Yeah, and they can change. So it's a taking a look and labeling their deeds, not labeling the person, and most people don't make that distinction.
I really like that. So what is the focus of Givers University? So it's online training courses that help people sort of expose this?
Yes. Well, we again, I mentioned the quiz. We have a 7-question, literally 5 minutes, super easy. I go to giversuniversity.info, www.giversuniversity.info. They're on the first page at that point of the quiz. And the questions are all about being aware and discerning these deeds. And they get a nice assessment. And then also we share with them some genuine usable downloads. I mentioned the 25 do's that takers do that they shouldn't be. That's one of the downloads. We give them a quick checklist. Look for this. These are the things you should be watching for. And then we have audio courses, about 15 minutes in length. So they're great for commute learning. They can listen to courses going to and from work, all based on this entire series that's called Give to Be Great, consisting of these 3 books.
I love that. I love what you're doing here. I love this message. And I think that, it's so interesting to hear stories about people who have had great mentoring relationships in their life too, because I think for so many, they don't have that. They really have never found that mentor that can help. But almost across the board, when I've come across an entrepreneur who has had a great mentor relationship, they have seen exponentially more success than many who don't, because
for sure.
It's somebody who can help hold you accountable. It's somebody who can share their wisdom and their lifelong learning. And yeah, I just encourage people to seek those out because they can be so valuable. As we wrap things up here today, just again, tell people where they can find you online and where they can find the university. And I will also make sure that we get all that linked up in the show notes.
Great. We just ask them to do the quiz. Go to www.givers, it's plural, giversuniversity.info, INFO. And from that, they will learn who we are, where we're at, and they're going to get some great downloads that will be easily usable, and they will be able to apply these things that we're going to provide them, because we're givers too, and we want to walk our talk. And thank you so much. And I pray that we were able to share with your listeners some things that provoke some thought and will help them on the road to success. And thank you for having such a spectacular podcast. I think your listeners should share it with everyone they know and post your podcast on their social media, because more people need to know the kinds of things that you're bringing to the public.
Hey, thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate your time today. Like I said, I really love your approach to this. I love just the whole concept around givers, because I'm a firm believer if we add value out there, that relationships and success will follow, and money is the end result of that, not necessarily the goal of it. And I think that the more people focus on delivering value, the more good things will happen in their life. So I really appreciate you sharing your message here today.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for having me on as a guest.
Thank you.